can we call the meeting to order? As almost previous chair, if I can just call the meeting to order and just say the first thing on.
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
We are now.
Right, the first thing on the agenda is elect a chair, so I'm going to hand over immediately to Chloe.
Yes. So obviously first thing on the agenda is elect chair, and I believe Councillor you would like to continue as chair.
I'm willing.
You are willing.
I
However,
have to be very careful.
I will dragoon him into it. I'm sorry, nominate.
Do you have anyone to second?
I'm happy to second. And do we have anybody else?
Is there anybody else who wants to stand for?
I was, but if Councillor Malik wants to stay, I will gladly support Councillor Malik.
Okay, so are you happy to vote for everyone in favour? Congratulations.
Thank you very much, I really appreciate it. This is the third year.
It's a bit like Hotel California. Once you check in.
Yeah, you never get. You only leave here in a box. Well, that's what I say. Whenever anybody comes and lives in the little community I'm in Marshborough, it is so true.
I'm so glad in my house there.
Yes, right. Now, do we have any, number two, do we have any apologies for absence?
We do. We've had apologies from Councillor Tommins and from Councillor Paul Carter.
Thank you very much. And anybody missing a part who's not?
No, Councillor Pennington. Yes, because he is the new member.
Councillor Morehouse, isn't he?
He's TDC full council tonight.
TDC full council. Can we accept that as an apology?
Yes,
I appreciate
I will
it.
check.
Yeah. Okay, and number three, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disposable pecuniary interest from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Okay. Let's move on. Number four, to consider co-optees. Members to consider up to 3 individuals with knowledge or expertise, or willingness, I should say, that will benefit the committee's operation to become co-optees. Their decision required. So,
can I propose Carol George and Keith Heather to stay, remain as co-opted members?
If they wish to.
If they wish to.
Yeah, mine's a basket when I go, you know, camp.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Thank you.
Or chocolates. Chocolates or flowers. Right, thank you. We have our two.
Sorry,
You have to vote for it.
Oh, can we have some second and then we can end it?
I'll second it.
Okay, so seconds. We have a second each.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we just vote on that. Agreement. Number 5, minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee. To receive the minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee held on Wednesday the 19th of March 2025 and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in this agenda. I'm bearing in mind we have an action and project role as well, which we go through anyway. Do you have anything?
I'm happy to propose the minutes.
Has anybody to second that? Councillor Brown? Councillor Super proposing Mr. Back. And if we can vote on that, show of hands vote on that.
I'll abstain.
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much. So we've got past that. And number 6, review action and project role. That is attachment number 1.
So could I just ask on the first action, just because it is a first action, within our business plan we talk about responding to the climate emergency over the next year and beyond. I just wonder if it could be an agenda item at some point, depending on how much time you might need, but perhaps talk to you about it.
Yes.
In terms of trying to explore how we might actually properly respond.
Yes.
There are things that I'm sure we're doing already, not least things like Godfrey Paddock, Cowsley, Hayes Meadow. We've got a Great British Green Week or something along those lines planned. So there are a number of things happening. But if we're going to respond to the business plan next year, we should think about practically what we might do.
Because we have the option, items for information matters to be raised for the next meeting.
Do you, sorry, it was this question to say,
I'm
do you want
responding
it
against
to
the
be,
action.
And
no, that's,
as an action log thing, so that we can raise it on essentially every meeting we have.
Yeah, it'd just be good to have a proper discussion about climate change and how we as a council could respond to it, and having input, obviously from Keith certainly, and certainly Carol as well.
so you're saying asking for an actual agenda item on the agenda separate from the action log?
Yeah, but I noticed, so I know your point about actually, at the end of the meeting we asked about
Yes.
agenda items. I'm just trying to roll it into this.
In that case, can we discuss that at the end? Actually, sort of as a, not an agenda item, but informally as a thing that we're going to cover. And also in relation to having it on the action log as well, whether it should be there. Because that sounds like, sort of relevant in there. So going through practical actions that Sandwich Town Council can take. Oh yes, please. Yes. Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes. Right. So the first one is going to consider a report from the Sandwich Environment Conservation Group.
This is what I was just talking about.
Yes, so and that's potentially as an agenda item. Kind of emergency. Sorry about this. I should have, what practical actions? Can we defer that to the end and actually have that as a sort of agenda item so that we can then expand on that going forward as a proper agenda item for the next meeting?
Yes.
So that it's a lot more formal. And
just to point out that this is the report of the voluntary tree warden, not Sandwich.
Yes.
That's later on.
That's later on.
That's later on, okay.
that as well.
Second
Yes.
best for last.
This is the plaque. The next item
Yes, the plan.
is the plaque on the remembrance on the memorial.
Yeah.
And over to you.
Sorry. So the last time we spoke, we thought that there would be a revised quote because of insurance issues. So I have spoken to the lady again, and she has, I don't know quite what's happened. She's going to send me a revised quote, but she thinks it will not be an insurance issue now. She's managed to sort that. So I'm hoping that I can put that to the town clerk for her to decide whether it needs to go to a finance committee. But it will be under £300, so
Wow.
it should just be something she can agree
That's
under
good.
her. Yes. So I'm hoping that we can organise that now. The weather is better. She's saying she should be available to do that sooner rather than later.
So as soon as we know, we can just sort of say, make it so.
I think so, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's all been agreed, I believe, at previous
Yes.
meetings, and it falls under the delegated person of the clerk to approve, so
Right, so we don't need to go through any other
it's just a
meetings.
case of trying to get her to
Right.
finalise
Thank
the.
Anybody, any other comments on that particular one? No. Moving on, the next one is the forecourt. Basically,
So shall I just start?
if you can.
And I know this is something that the H&T committee feel very strongly about, and it is a little difficult for me to, so the connection, we have been chasing it, is basically, and we've not yet had a response, and we've chased it 3 times in the last, few weeks to try and get an answer for this. I have just asked even for a simple sentence or statement just to pass on to say it's not something that maybe DDC can deal with at this time, or for you to actually see in writing. I'm still waiting for some kind of confirmation.
So who are we chasing it with?
The gentleman that you spoke to, who I think
Who was the
came in-
project manager?
Yeah,
He's
did.
now head of development or something, head of assets, something.
Yeah.
He's certainly within a senior role within there.
And this is the
Yeah.
town clerk who's been chasing as well directly, so it's not sort of just me, it's,
No.
I've not yet had.
Can I make a suggestion? So obviously we have BBC Council as part of this committee as well, so maybe we can ask him to start pushing it from his side of the BBC level
Yeah.
and say that we want some answers from regarding what we can do next.
Yeah.
If everyone's happy with that.
Is it something, oh
So,
sorry,
sorry, no, but to be honest, I mean, the, I think communication between the project manager, who is now not project manager, even when that project was going on, communication was very, very good.
yes.
And so it doesn't surprise me. And also, if you think about it, when Southern Water actually passed over what I thought was £30,000 for the Bulwark Park, it took how many years for them to find that money to then decide it was only 15?
Yes.
I mean, it's an appalling state of affairs, really, because that is your money should be being spent.
Because the works was 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was dreadful.
Yes, for that, yes.
Sorry, I know it's not helping, but it isn't. It's just really can see the frustration.
And just to clarify, fundamentally, it's how much money is left over from the forecourt works
Yes.
that is available to do the snagging. There is snagging to do.
And I have a list of the things that
Yeah.
are of concern.
Yeah.
It's just waiting for a response.
Right.
Yeah, I can also offer that that's right, the district council should be asked to intervene as well. But if there's no traction, I'm hoping to have a meeting with the leader of DDC. Town clerk will be writing to them tomorrow, so I'm more than happy to pick this up alongside other matters,
Yeah.
if I'm entertained.
And any other comments on the forecourt? I'm sure there are loads of comments,
Yeah.
but I think we can move on from that. The next one is Ainsley Court, and the potential ramp. Now, to note that we don't. Has Councillor Anderson left the committee?
Yes.
Ah, right. Even so, I think we should actively pursue this one because I feel it's an important one. And as a committee member, I've spoken to Clive because I think he's he communicates and he's available, and he has to make a circuitous route to get to the quay, for example, from here on the road. And I think that we should persist on whatever we can do with Ainsley Court. As you noted on the agenda here, Councillor Mallet, Ripley, Carol need to approach Ainsley Court. We need a contact.
Oh,
So
right,
if you can pass
That's
on
fine.
who the contact is and share it between the three of us, and I don't mind taking it on myself to approach that person. Who was first? Councillor Berger?
Thank you. Just like to say, I'd like to be associated.
Yes, of course. In that case,
I have spoken with Councillor Anderson on several occasions about the disability issue, and I would like to be involved.
yeah. And
I was going to say that, Mr. Mayor, was the form I did.
Yeah. So I believe we still have the funds within the budget of £2,500. So the key things that we need to address are to ensure that there is not an issue with KCC, as it is a public right-of-way. Whilst it's on private land, it is a walk-through that the public uses. So we need to box that off. So we can't just go to
I don't believe it's an official right of way
no, so as long as we've got that boxed off,
in written.
Yeah. and then we have to do the same with DDC to make sure there are no issues. And this isn't to say there should be issues, but the worst thing we could do is invest money in a ramp that is completely sensible, and then we get challenged somewhere along the way in terms of not having complied with the right authorities. So they're the two authorities we need to engage. And I think if we go back about 6 or 8 months, that was flagged up at that point, so I'm not sure that's.
Carol?
The permission from the Directors of Ainsley Court must be here because it's already been given.
Yes, it
We
does.
have, yes.
So when we're saying about talking to them again,
Yeah, let's be careful.
yeah,
Yeah.
because we've already got, and also that road, that I call it the roadway along the side of the river. My understanding now is that actually it belongs to Highway and Marine. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's been quite a lot of unpleasantness about the tables and chairs outside the Crispin and the toll bridge. And they were up in arms because they got a letter saying they couldn't put tables and chairs outside, when actually Highway and Marine had originally given them permission to do so, and Sandwich Town Council had given them permission as long as there were 2 tables and the chairs were either side of the table, so it created a long line along that wall. Obviously, the gentleman who we all know who lives next door, he obviously, I don't know whether he had any idea that it was Highway Marine's land, but he obviously went to the council, who the DDC, I think, to get all that changed. So it strikes me as very odd that if that is Highway Marine land, and I don't know whether it is, I'm just saying, is it Highway Marine? Because if it's Highway Marine land, is it them that someone should be talking to?
Well, as well.
Well, yeah, as well, yes, because you know that the person who lives in the house next door was actually given permission to, when it was sold, there was already something there that said they could use that for a car.
Yes.
And this is where that, but if that's owned all the way down there, and we're not talking about taking this transport, well, we are, perhaps an electronic wheelchair, but actually, it may be them that has to be given a flight. And I don't know that that's, I'm just throwing that in, because it could.
It's helpful.
Yeah. Can I suggest that we should also consider grandfather rights, because that access has been used by the public for generations, not just 10, 12 years, but absolutely generations, if not hundreds of years. So while Highway Marine, and I wouldn't dispute who owns it or what have you, but as for the footpath, and I would imagine it might well be a footpath as well, I have experience of the footpath on my land, and I know that I can do whatever I like, as long as I don't stop people using it and don't restrict them. And in terms of restriction, certainly within Woodensburg Parish Council, we've had to deal with an individual who's had a footpath next to their property, and they put barbed wire entanglements to stop people using an official footpath. So, you know, I think this footpath thing, and it can get complicated. My personal view is, yes, Highway Marine maybe owns it. What we're talking about is a separate bit of land where we seem to have permission, and I think if we start to extend and ask X, Y, and Z permission, or an apparent permission, we might get a little bit confused. Councillor Zhang?
Won't the land registry be able to clarify that? Because if it's been there for that long, it must be in the registry somewhere. And that is the definitive answer. Yes, your point about rights of way, if they're not specifically mentioned as not being a right of way and are not closed at least one day of the year, it's probably right of way.
Yeah.
Let's check it, because those buildings are quite new. They're not old. They're not new, but they're newish to the town, as it were. So
15 years?
Yeah, and I think before we start working on this properly, we need to check all the licensing, check the rights of way, we need to check everything, make sure we've got it right before we start doing proper work. But especially putting money towards things. Also, highway marine, yes, we can approach it. I won't be approaching sadly because they're going to be my new landlords in the next couple of weeks, so I can't be seen dealing with my landlord asking for rights of way. So I'm more than happy to help with this. Could we talk about this more in detail when the disability access part
Yes,
of
of
this,
course,
so we
yes.
can crack on and
We can move on.
and then carry on.
Good plan, good plan. So if we move on from there, but from this we do need the details of who we're speaking to here.
Yeah, I said, yeah.
The other thing I need to say is I've said to Ms. Smith before, we need to have a discussion with our new KCC councillor and also find out who the new KCC highways portfolio holder is going to be as well, to see, so we could get a meeting with that person as well to discuss, because we've got a range of things within the town, not including not just the disability stuff.
Okay, and the next one, Compass Rose,
Completed, moving on.
done, we can delete that.
Yes, I just
So-
thought I would put it on there.
Yeah, so that we can delete something.
Sorry, can I ask again when it's going to be
So,
inauguration or was
yeah, so it will, but there's some remedial
Yeah.
work that's been identified, so once we've got some time scales around that, then and it has been passed to STC to sort out, the launch of it, so,
Great.
yes.
So I thought it was going to be a day of transfer of the speakership to Hastings, was
That's
that?
today,
Oh, of course it was.
yeah, and that was in Hastings.
Yes, there was going to be something here though, but
I think they had asked about that date with the view, and then realised that it wasn't here in Sandwich, it was actually going to be Hastings.
that's what I thought, but we'll leave it at that. Yeah, okay.
But even so, if we can remove it from here because it's gone beyond the
Been dealt
Best
with.
Committee,
Yeah.
it's good to actually complete things.
So maybe don't lose it, maybe just grey it out so we can pass ourselves on the back every meeting. It's the one that's been completed.
Right, and the next one is Trains, Network Rail, Kent Resilience Forum and KCC Traffic Management. Do you want to comment on that before? I'm sure that's what
I would hand to Councillor Black because I know that you had taken this forward, but I understand as we left it last time, you were organising a meeting, but we had a run of meetings that weren't suitable for it to be ahead of.
We did, but they were due to come back to me, they haven't come back to me. I have no doubt that the excuse is now that southeastern trains are merging with Network Rail to form to have a railway where the management of the railway operates both the track and signalling and the trains, which is kind of what they do everywhere else in the world. And that's going to be the first place in Britain that's going to happen. So I suspect we'll find both the operators and the infrastructure people will say they're extremely busy. I'm getting a bit hacked off with them, to put it mildly, and I'm going to escalate it. This has to go up to Chief Executive. This is, the local people are not responding at all. But no doubt that'll be the reason given that we're so busy doing other things.
Keep it on there.
Yes,
So
yes.
that-
Yeah, I'll chase it up again.
We'll keep it there because it's got to happen sometime. Yeah. Moving on, any other comments on Network Rail? No. With regard to the Tree Warden's report in relation to climate emergency, if we're mentioning climate emergency further down, if we can. Oh yes, I haven't reached the end of what I was saying. I was actually going to say you're the person to be speaking about it. So, Councillor Ripley, over to you.
Before Councillor Ripley starts, I would like to apologise for actually not forwarding this earlier. Since the last meeting, it has been a little bit. The town clerk was off for 5 weeks. I was off for a couple of weeks. So I do apologise. And Councillor Ripley did ask me yesterday, and I completely forgot before I left the office. So I have printed you a copy now for you to be able to take away, and I will ensure you have a digital copy. So the delays are on my end, so I'm sorry about that.
Just to say that I've had meetings and discussions with the voluntary tree warden, and as she has pointed out, this report of hers is slightly outdated in certain areas, but not across the board.
certain bits of it are. I've also spoken to our property manager about the potential trees on Carrie's Meadow that should be provided because of all the work done on the Wall Nature Reserve and the trees that were removed there. So these are, and he's still in touch with whoever it is that he's in touch with about it. And we'll be in touch as well with voluntary tree warden because she's the expert in her field. So that's still ongoing. But one of the things that has been requested, particularly by her, is that we have this as an agenda item going. I hate that expression, going forward. But so to keep this as an agenda item because there's an awful lot to be done around the town in terms of what you can see by the detail on this report that she's done, how much there is to do, and it's an important part of Sandwich's environmental project and everything else. So I would request that we put this as an agenda item in the future.
As a permanent agenda?
Yes, as a permanent agenda.
In that case, can we include that in our discussion on point 10 as to the structure of the climate change approach within Heritage and Townscape, including trees and whatever else should be discussed as a distinct agenda item? That potentially, if it's an agenda item, potentially that should be removed from here, but we'll do that in sequence. We'll make sure it's on the agenda, what we're going to discuss and how that impacts on anything that's already on the action list. So we're not duplicating things.
Yes, so that's going to be like a permanent agenda item to go forward.
So, right, Councillor Chuka and Councillor Morehouse to explore the mowing regime for Sandwich.
So the situation with that is I met with DDC officers maybe 3 weeks ago. In essence, Keith, you were there as well, weren't you?
Yeah.
I think in essence there's quite a reluctance on their part from a delivery perspective in that they contract contractors to do the mowing. Any modifications cost money and it's not easy to implement. So the only option that they gave to us was for us as a council to consider leasing land from DDC to then do with it what we want, i.e. an alternative way of managing that piece of land. I'm still waiting for them, so I asked them to get an indicative price for doing that. We identified a piece of land which is at the end of the butts, not very large, but I don't know what the cost would be. And if it was sensible for us to then take that forward, we would have to bring it into STC to consider. So there would be a financial cost, there would be an insurance cost, and then we could do with it what we wanted. And the lease I think suggested was two years.
Yes.
Yeah. So it sort of has got stuck as an option. These were your
No, I was previously.
Can I just say less diplomatically that we were gobsmacked. We were in effect asking Dover District Council not to do something to save money and time, or maybe not even money and time, just not do something. Don't mow a certain area as often as they do now. And their response was to say, well, in order to do that, you'll have to take out a licence or a lease on that identified area of land with the possibility of paying, I think they quoted £260 for legal costs to do it, so that you are then responsible for the insurance and anything that happens to that bit of land. And then you can decide not to mow it as frequently as we, DEC, do. I think it had the effect of absolutely gobsmacking us, because we're asking them not to do something, not to spend as much money, and they resisted.
I'm with you entirely on that. I found that deeply offensive that, you know, we're asking them not to do it, to go with a more green initiative that we're all keen on and etc. And they're keen on as well apparently. And they come up with this, I think that's absolutely appalling. Appalling.
Yeah.
Councillor Hamilton?
Yes, thank you. Yes, my first question was why should it cost them money?
So the suggestion was that by not mowing something, the savings were negligible, almost negligible, because they have to pay for a contract which is for a vast amount of land. Just not doing a small bit will make no difference to their costs. So that was the first argument. But then also having to ask a set of contractors to vary where they go and where they don't go has implications from a council perspective.
My second question was, sorry, the piece of land that you were mentioning which end of
You'll know it. So the final entrance on the bus down to the cricket ground clubhouse.
Yes.
There is rough land. It's green, but it's very rough, and that would be an area that could benefit from not being mowed, because actually it has had growth of
Is that the one on the side of the cricket pitch? Is that on the same side or on the side of the...
Yeah, so on the town trail,
Yeah.
you would drop down towards the clubhouse.
Yeah.
On the other side of that path, there is land.
Well, it's not much.
It's been
Not much.
That's a joke, isn't it? That's a joke.
Yeah, when we first took over the St Mary's Church Gardens, actually that land is DDC's responsibility. And Roger Egg, who was then in charge, we spoke directly to him and said, well, in fact it was Chris Day, and said that we wanted to create a garden there for the centre of the town. At that time, there was a tree and some shrubs. We had to move some of the headstones and so on. However, they were delighted that they would no longer have to mow that piece of grass, because that and as Mill Galley is, they've taken over responsibility for the gardens and doing the grass, and there was no question that they were going to charge for not doing that piece of grass, not cutting that piece of grass at all, which is, I think, the same at St Clement's Church have a similar sort of issue in some of the land, and I don't think DDC have ever come back and said not to mow something, they're going to charge you.
It may be different because, sorry, just quickly, it may be different because of who owns the land. So, for instance, St Peter's Church is owned by the Church Conservation Trust, and Clements is owned obviously by the Diocese of Canterbury and stuff like that. So it might be because DDC own that land by the cricket pitch. That's probably why. That's my only thinking.
But I know they didn't produce, they didn't ask for money to stop doing it.
Yes.
There's a similar previous comparison in that SECG now maintains the 5 flower beds along the rump walk. Now DDC do own that. We negotiated with their staff, they were pleased that somebody was going to make an effort, because they planted some roses some time ago, and that was their sum total of effort for those 5 flower beds. There was no question of this is a problem, this is a legal issue, you may have to take out a licence. DDC staff just said to us and to Sandwich and Blue jointly, yes, thank you, and we proceeded as such. This is a new thing.
And wasn't there an issue about sort of cutting the grass? Because DDC cut that grass
All
too,
around.
all around, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Who did you talk to? It wasn't Roger Rickman.
That's right. Councillor Chico?
So I think we just need to be realistic. So we have engaged a small subset with parks and open spaces. I think it might be 4 times now on this. they've made it very clear they are not willing to entertain any no mowing. So there's no point, we can spend, until the cows go home, cows, that might be an idea. But there is nothing that we can do within the town council that we haven't tried. What we have, the only option we've been given now is to consider leasing land ourselves from the District Council. It would cost the town council to do so, and we haven't yet got an indicative cost.
I'm sorry, I just think that is ridiculous. I'm not, that's not you being ridiculous, I just think DDC is being completely ridiculous if they think that's a viable option. I mean, for goodness sake.
That's where I am, I don't think we will be a viable.
No, and I don't think we should even consider it. I mean, I find that deeply offensive, actually.
Councillor Murray?
My opinion would be is to leave it for this year, and then hopefully the STC can go to DDC and try and do the campaign of No Mow May for next year, possibly.
Can, I mean, it's in the public domain, we're talking about it on a camera. Can we promote this nonsense in social media? Is that appropriate or inappropriate for us to do that?
I don't know if it's nonsense as such, Simon, because they're taking their own.
Yes,
they're taking their own view on this,
yes.
whether we like it or not. They're making a decision from their perspective. Their perspective is they are not willing to invest in a project of no mowing themselves for their reasons.
Yeah.
Whether it's nonsense or not is
that's an inappropriate word. I appreciate that, but it contradicts the climate change emergency. It contradicts an awful lot of statements.
I would go with nonsense personally.
Sorry, can I just add one possible? The other thing is, under the willow trees down on the quay, we planted many daffodil bulbs. And every year, to stop them mowing in that area, we have to put up some red little streamers that go across some sticks. If we're actually talking about things like this, rather than saying don't mow it, we just put that across and say, you know, don't mow it, because that's what we said, don't mow it because there are bulbs in there. Well, don't mow it because there's flowers planted in there.
Well, can we just try that?
Because you can just look it off and we
as a
get
member of
there.
the public,
Yeah.
one can just go and stick it in.
Yeah.
They might come and pull it out. I'm not suggesting anything.
They did even better than us. It was one less thing for them to do.
Yeah.
I can't possibly see how it costs them more not to do something. And that's really
So if we can move on. Yes.
As it's a whinge session, I'll carry on.
All right. Last week.
Last whinge. I was always impressed by the fact that there were little red flags in the grasslands around the car parks at the DDC headquarters, marking rare orchids. I was very impressed. It's been like that for several years, and they don't mow where there are these little red flags. And I was so impressed by Dover District Council to have the staff who would carefully put these little red flags. A week ago, I discovered that it was the White Cliffs Countryside Partnership who did that, not Dover District Council. But fortunately, the mowers do mow around the little red flags to avoid chopping up the orchids. So DDC are even worse than I thought.
We'll move on from that.
Little red flags.
Next one, I think, was the invitation to our MP, Sir Roger Gale, to come and join us to view the topic.
I have sent one, but I haven't had a response yet.
Right, can we remind him?
Yes.
Not necessarily at our convenience, at his convenience.
Yeah, no, I did, yeah.
Yes, and are we all, I'm sorry.
Yes, I seem to remember we've had two reports about walking and cycling in the town, and I wonder how much. I seem to remember the mayor at the time saying, well, this sort of, overcomes a lot of the points that we were making. I personally didn't think it did, but do we need to take any cognizance of the reports we've had in the past month about traffic, walking and cycling? I don't see how it affects it, but it was raised.
Yeah. I personally, I don't think they're affected at all.
No, I don't either.
We and I would encourage anybody to go and actually stand there, as we did. It was myself, Councillor Marie,
Councillor Ripley, Carol,
yes, and observed the fact that certainly at 5 o'clock, we were there at 5 o'clock, there was a periods when the lights were in favour of Sandwich, coming from Sandwich, and there were no cars. Lights in favour of coming from Ramsgate, and there were cars, which indicated that there was the potential for restricting access such that pedestrians could cross without impacting anything. And I think that certainly having our MP observing this and potentially approaching our new KCC, the person who's responsible for traffic, and maybe inviting them as well. But I think let's just start with our MP and council.
We had a meeting at the town team on Monday because it's actually because we want to take the town team in a slightly different direction and actually start looking at a more strategic plan for Sandwich, sort of back to where we came from before, not keep covering the same sort of ground. And obviously, when we threw that open, there were a lot of people made comments about the bridge and ideas. And I think everyone realised that, I think someone suggested a tunnel. But yes, but I think the idea that you phase the lights in some way, or you actually have a pedestrian button on the lights that actually they press where pedestrians, and it stops that traffic so pedestrians can cross safely. And I don't know about the technicalities of phasing the lights in that way or having that facility, but it certainly wouldn't be as much as other costs were. The consideration was that at the moment when the lights were being phased differently, the traffic, if it was in the morning going over the bridge to go to Discovery Park area, was building up and was going all the way back. I think someone mentioned as far as Breezy Corner, waiting to move across. And in the other direction in the evening, it was going back that way. So you had a lot of fumes, the idling cars and so on and so forth. And because there's no real pavements, you pedestrians are walking there and getting all of that muck as well. But, if strategically that is the answer, that you are going to have cars queuing, they're eventually going to get fed up with queuing, and one hopes that would deter these drivers, because they're not actually, most of them are not really coming into the town, they're using the town as a cut-through.
Yeah.
So that was I think that was the most sensible sort of suggestion that came out of that, a pedestrian button that they could, when they press it, it allows them to walk across the bridge.
And
Thank you. I think one of the things that's become apparent is that you never please everybody on
no,
this.
totally.
There is no way that everybody's going to agree on a solution to the problem, and we're just going to have to live with that. But I do think it's about time we took into consideration pedestrians on par with car drivers and other vehicles, because it seems to me that the vehicle drivers, etc., have been put in a prominent position all this time, or they're more important than pedestrians. They're not.
No.
We need to ensure the safety of pedestrians is vital crossing that route.
This is really gritty for me. This is really grinds my gears, because I live opposite it, so I see it every day. My biggest issue is the vehicles that go over it, the larger vehicles that go over it. We've already seen when we saw it last time, when it was repaired and we saw the scratches down the side of the wall. That's one of our historic assets, should I say, from the town. And it's looking as worse as it did before. It was taken up a few years ago to be repaired. But I have spoken to the town clerk, and I've spoken to a couple of councillors. She is happy for a working group to be set up on the permission of the council, if it's brought to the council for them to agree whether it should be. But I do feel that we can work this, and this can work in collaboration with the Disability Access Group as well, regarding the phasing of the lights and stuff. The other thing is we need to, as I said, regarding the disability access, is to speak to the new highways guy from KCC, or lady from KCC, get them down here to see it and what we would like to do with it. I mean, well, I'm quite happy to phase the lights and put a width restriction on the bridge either side to stop the heavy vehicles and the larger vehicles going over.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Were you before me or?
Please, after you.
Right, my view as a councillor, within this particular committee and any potential working group, is the working group or this committee should focus on one solution, because what happens is we look at the toll bridge and then, as Caroline mentioned, people come up with their own personal views, some of which are not, well, am I allowed to use the word nonsense again? Which aren't appropriate, won't happen ever. As commented, we need to stick with something that can happen, that we don't talk about everything over and over again. And I would say a working group that says phasing of the lights allowing people to cross the bridge in a safe manner. No bridge, no tunnel, no nothing else. That is what the working group is for until we get that.
I do feel that I think there's two elements within the toll bridge that I think most of the people in this room agree on, and that is the phasing of the lights and also stopping the heavy vehicles going over the bridge.
And focus on that, rather than
that's
a working group that discusses things that just get discussed over and over.
And that's the intention.
Councillor Black?
Well, I did suggest a working group. I think Councillor Marie and I were sort of discussed that before. I actually wrote some terms of reference for it. So we did those out, modify them slightly. I'd like to be involved in that because of my transport background. Also, if you do have the manage to get the MP, I'd like to come along to that as well, part of my background. At that time we were thinking really there are only two realistic options. One option was the phasing of the lights, and the other one was to move one of the pedestrian strips. So you get one wide pedestrian strip and one carriageway. When we thought that those were the only two realistic options, given the kind of funding that was available. I wouldn't choose at this stage to rule out the second one, because I can see if people are not very good at following the lights, and they're always going to be, someone's going to move very slowly, the lights will change, and you can have a car or a vehicle right up backside of a slow moving pedestrian, and that is going to be a problem, a potential hazard. So I wouldn't rule out two, but
can we have it so that because we would have to approach historic England? If they came in and said, absolutely no way, never, never, then we can dismiss that.
Yeah.
But it remains something that is relevant.
Sorry, I agree with what Councillor Black's saying. However, I don't think remodelling the bridge as it is now is making a bit extra. I think it was too costly, especially for that type of bridge. Also, with the phasing of the lights, don't forget the highway code changed its rules a couple of years ago regarding pedestrians and crossing roads and making it safe for them. And now passengers have more right of way crossing a road, crossing junctions and lights, etc., than they used to have before. So that comes into effect as well.
I feel, sorry, can I? Sorry. I was just going to say, following on from that, it would be nice if the drivers knew that, wouldn't it? Because how many times do you stand at a junction and they just whiz past and they don't know the rules? That's the only problem, but I totally agree with it.
It's like the highway code is always changing, the highway code changes the prices, but they don't listen to that either.
I accept the argument that we have to focus on something we can do, can be afforded, and that is the phase lights. Personally, I'm one of these people that have these exaggerated points of view, and I think eventually we should pedestrianise the bridge and have a pedestrianised precinct all round the Barbican as a feature of the town. That's obviously for the future. So I'm happy to be involved in a working group on the bridge, and I will shut up about pedestrianisation, but I would like it to be seen that this would be a temporary.
Well, if the working group is able to differentiate between now and to get something happening, and then the future, but distinctly say this is not to be focused on.
Could I? I was just going to say, we just need to be careful. Obviously, working groups, the purpose of those is usually to do with something that's short term. So 6 months is the life of the working group. How I feel about this particular challenge, my personal view at the moment is it should be out with the council. Those with the interested parties, which would include councillors, should meet and should develop something, because this will take an extensive period of time, if only to get the right people engaged. But there's a lot of thought that needs to go into this in terms of options. A working group doesn't feel right on this matter, I'm really honest. But that's, I'm just leaving that there to consider, because if you set up a working group, it could be running for the next 2 years.
So can I just ask a question about that then? What do you suggest instead? I didn't quite get what you suggested.
There's no reason why, like, the town team exists. There's no reason, for example, there's no reason why it couldn't be deferred to the town team to take ownership for it. But there is no reason why it shouldn't. It has to be on. We have our protocols. We have our ways of doing things. Working groups should really, because they deal with short-term challenges. This is a strategic change, I think, that's been argued for.
Can I just paraphrase something I said a bit earlier? I think the town team are looking at stopping the constant reactive situations to issues within the town, whether that be speeding, the flow of traffic, the pedestrianisation, pedestrian priority. There's a whole gambit of things that are wrong. Access and disabilities, all these things. Once upon a time, when we first started in the town, when I first started in the town team, we looked at an overall plan that was for Sandwich. And yes, it's not going to happen overnight, but if we just do little bits here and little bits there, whatever we do there is going to affect something over here. And you reminded me that when we were looking at the bridge, and you came up with that piece about making that a lovely pedestrianised piece and moving the pavement out further. I mean, that was a brilliant idea. And I think there are a lot of good ideas, but we need to go back and look at this in total, and look at the town in total, and not perhaps tinker with something to get a quick win for that. There will be some quick wins you can get, but I think the town needs a plan that isn't about just tinkering with the edges. It's about, what are we going to do about Sandwich? Growth of property, growth of people, infrastructure, doctors, schools, transport.
That's not the...
No, but I think the problem is that we're going to, by tinkering around, and I would like to see the bridge safer, don't get me wrong, I really would. And I think there is a point here about doing something, a piece of work which is much more strategic.
Marie?
Yeah, just quickly, I agree with some aspects of what Carol was saying. However, I do feel if it goes to the town team, no disrespect to the town team, I do feel it will get lost. And I do feel that the action on the toll needs to be taken out. Don't forget, the town's kind of shifting. There's more buildings going on, especially with Discovery Park and regarding the local plan. We need to act on the bridge now to stop the damage. We've already seen the walls come down once before.
Well, the focus, the actual note here was about Sir Roger Gale. We can stick with that. Councillor Pennington and then Councillor Whitley.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of complaints when I was talking to people on High Street about the fact that when the lights change, everybody puts their foot down to get round the toll bridge and up High Street. and speeding is really quite a problem there. But it emphasises the point that, you know, one thing leads to another. We need to view this in the whole. I think total pedestrian of the centre of Sandwich is probably not going to be acceptable to certain groups. But I think we have to look at ways of managing the flow of traffic through the town much better than we do at the moment. That is a longer term issue, and I take Councillor Sugar's point about not suitable for a working group.
But as per the note here, is to get.
Yes, sorry,
let's stick with that.
Let's start.
Small
He
steps.
wants Sir Roger to come.
The reason to have Sir Roger Gale here is to at least have our MP say, yes, I agree.
There's an issue.
Yeah, there is a problem, and this is a potential solution.
Can we,
And then we can take it further and further, but we start to build up.
Yeah.
It's trying to get it to snow.
Yeah.
can we extend that invitation please to the new KCC member
Of
for
course.
Sandwich and
Yes.
also the KCC member for highways
Yeah.
as well?
Not necessarily together.
No.
No, I'm not saying that to keep them apart. It's if
Cross-party partnerships.
yes, just to get somebody here to actually see it, because we're dealing with people in an office in Maidstone,
And central London,
in central London, who are not here, who are not seeing it, and who are just basically going on hearsay. And
Yeah, just very briefly to reiterate what I said before really. We're not going to please everybody, we have to accept that. Although I agree with a lot of what Carol has said about taking the town as a whole, I think the tollgate is a very, very important first step. It's one that most people are concerned with, and I think we need to deal with that first and then spread our wings a bit.
And I do feel it should remain within the council, no disrespect to the town, let's just stay within the council.
that's okay then. So we're going to move
Shall
on.
we write
Yes.
We're going to move on now.
Sorry.
Move on. As chair, I can do that. So street furniture.
Yes.
Um,
So, just a very quick update.
Where are
This Friday, what day is it today? Wednesday? Friday, I have got a DDC officer delivering a number of items that will support the street furniture project, i.e. the town trail refurbishing. So I will have a number of items to enable us to, for example, section off parts that when things are painted, that it will be protected away from the public. So there's a whole host of stuff that's been given to us at no charge. But then we need to launch an effort where we possibly look for volunteers to get involved and slowly, discreetly start tackling some of the aspects on the town trail that we are within our scope of doing. We've got some money in the budget, we need to buy some paint, etc. But there are things that we can do like railings, things like benches, etc. So it's moving on. So I will have some supporting equipment on Friday.
any comments on that?
Can I ask for just some clarification on the projects? As it's literally the start of another year in the heritage, you know, as in you just said, do you want these projects to renew? Are they continuing, or are you? I wasn't here when they started, so I wasn't sure. Yes, because we seem to have lost a few, and some people dropped.
Oh, I see. So, for example, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, so I know that Slowways is closed off.
Yeah. I think leave them on because they were there for a reason, just because the individual.
Okay.
So certainly with the Ainsley Court, I know it was Councillor Anderson originally leading that. I think it is still very, very relevant because there are still people who have mobility issues, and I don't think there's anything we've agreed to remove.
Parking and speeding are likely to be covered by HIP, so are they no longer individual Because they were two separate projects.
Oh, I see, on this particular one. Oh, right, just this.
I was just wondering if
Yeah.
what ones are still valid.
Slowways. Is there anybody here who is involved, interested in slowways?
Well,
Oh,
Slowways,
I
it said
think
its project's been
you want to
closed.
close that
It's
one.
Yes.
closed, we
But
won't.
parking and speeding, is that now a HIP issue?
So in terms of the HIP, I have a meeting next week with the town clerk and Councillor Green, because we were the three that brought the report to, I think it was to STC, where we agreed the HIP. Within the HIP, there is definitely one opportunity to look at, which is speed watch being reintroduced. Parking, there are some elements of parking within that. So the HIP is going to be progressed. With that,
Sorry.
This is a good week time, I suppose.
Yeah.
For this meeting.
yes, so that discussion is to reflect on what was decided at STC and decide what happens next. We were given a number of actions out of STC, and that might mean we come back to STC, or we do what we do need to do, which is engage with KCC on the things that they have jurisdiction over.
Regarding the parking also as well, BBC are doing a big parking review at the moment, so I'm not sure whether what we need to might have to wait for them to decide what they're doing before. Obviously, we've had the meeting on Monday regarding parking charges especially, so we need to see what's going on with that as well.
So
you're keeping.
I think keep
Keep it on the
side.
back burner.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll report into the next meeting about the HIP discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we're at the end of our
Around some pages.
action and project law. So number 7, public participation. A 20-minute session is set aside for members of the public to make representations at the meeting in respect of business on the agenda. Individual representation should not exceed 5 minutes. And do we have any notice? Notice? No, in that case we'll move on. Number 8, disability access strategy. Members to consider how access across Sandwich can be improved for disabled and less mobile members of the community and visitors. We have obviously been discussing that. Is there anything further we need to consider on this one? I'd like to add one area. And before.
I'd just like to say that I think this is another area that has to be wrapped up in what's going to happen or what should happen in Sandwich. Because it's a huge area, this issue of people accessing the town that are disabled or have buggies or whatever. It's a major problem. It's a problem for tourism, it's a problem for residents. Any visitor that comes in, finding a way around this town, getting to the train station and so on, it's massive. And I think, Claire did a good job at creating an initial paper that talked about what was wrong and how we put it right. I think is a massive job. So again, I go back to looking at strategically what happens in the town. How do we get around the town? I know that the HIP report was you had dropped curbs on it, didn't it?
Not as
Not
priority
this one.
items.
No, this is one of the other areas we've mapped out where the drop curb should be, at least to get people around the town, and that is something that, what is it, £2,500 a time to drop a curb from KCC? It's a ludicrous situation when it is a legal requirement for a town to have that facility built into it. So I'm not sure you'll tackle it just on its own. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
Well, we can't just simply remove it.
No.
I don't think that's appropriate.
No.
Certainly, if it's going to be discussed in any of the committees, this is the correct committee. And I think that going forward, we do need to, or in my case, identify areas or distinct things that we can chip away at and say that this is an issue, we've seen it as an issue, what can we do? Because otherwise, if we step back and say we need to have an all-encompassing view, as you made the comment, everybody has a different view. There's as many ways forward as there are people in Sandwich.
I understand that. All I'm saying is you do have a report of what's wrong.
Yeah.
Revisit the report of what is wrong, because that will save you hours of work. There's probably a lot more wrong maybe now, but it was done with a disabled gentleman on a motor scooter, on an electric wheelchair. They went round the town together. They looked at how you access, for example, nationwide. You can come off one curve, but there's no way up to the other side. How you cross Market Street, how you access, as we've just been discussing, the quay into the centre of town. That was in Councillor Anderson's original access report. So maybe that's where we could have a look.
Seen that.
I haven't seen that.
No.
That was before my
I might have it.
Maybe a request from Councillor Anderson to
Yeah,
resend it.
Yes.
And I will have a look to see where
Yes,
it
please.
because it was an offshoot, again, it came as an offshoot from the town team when Councillor Anderson was just Mrs. Anderson.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, in that case, because that's before my time.
yeah.
So can we have as an action just to approach Councillor Anderson and say, do you still have that report? And can you share it?
Just wanted to ask a question. I'm playing dumb, probably, like always. But 106 money regarding the town and the disability access strategy regarding drop curves and stuff. Because I don't think this council's seen 106 money in a long time. So maybe that could be looked into, explored to say possible 106 money for certain things.
Super idea. Councillor.
Yes, in a previous incarnation, in a small coastal Kent town not far from here, we did try to draw up a list of priorities for Section 106 money, because Section 106 money often just sits with the higher levels of council, and if you go with basically a shopping list saying, look, well, this is what we would like to see done, it actually helps speed things up. Well, I don't think that.
Then we have a focus, it's something to aim for. We need a report, and then we need to see how much money we can get out of highways.
So one of the things we learnt on Monday, we had a DDC officer at the town team, or two at the town team meeting, and one of them said that, because we were discussing 106 money, and she said that she's going to ask someone from the planning office to come and speak to us to go through what the 106 money can be used for and how you use it. The issue that I hadn't realised was apparently when a builder puts in an application to build 40 houses, the builder at that point, there is obviously a set amount of money from 106, or 106 money that's set aside at that point.
Yeah.
That is then taken in, as I understand it, to DDC.
Yeah.
DDC at that point can allocate where that money is going to be spent.
Yeah.
And the example was given as hall, the community hall, that was put there or given as allocated to be built by 106 money for a set of houses. The problem is the builder didn't build the houses immediately. The money is still allocated to do just that, and that money is now nowhere near enough to build the community centre. But the problem is that when you're saying we need to catch the 106 money, we might be too late now for some of the properties that have gone up.
So a really good example is Discovery Park. That was discussed 10 years or so ago. 106 money is already identified in that. It is not coming to Sandwich Town Council, that's for sure. Some of it is earmarked to KCC in terms of transport, but you're right, it's managed within Dover District Council. And there have been exchanges probably about 2 or 3 months ago around 106 money that might be coming where the town council, and there is not. And the advice we got was that we will be played into future discussions about future developments. But that's where we are.
So we need to get our stake,
Yes.
finger in the pie
Yes.
early and say,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Councillor Pennington's quite right. If you had a specific list of things that you maybe want to do, and put your bid in for the very next development, maybe they'd take some notice.
As part of the planning and those conversations that were had, that there will be a consultation in which STC will be involved. We
Yes.
have put our hand up to say that, we want to have feedback and we want to
in that case, can we'll start off with this report. Because if the report exists, then let's use it and see if it's appropriate still.
You said you had one.
No, oh yes, just identifying an area that I thought maybe can be dealt with, because in consideration of access to the quay, the paving that you recently mentioned that you saw the crack when you had the repair done in those steps. So this is the next to the tennis courts. You've got some steps going up, a flat bit, then steps going down. Now that just looks like a special device to keep disabled people out. Remove it, just get rid of it. It's not, it does nothing to do, it's nothing to do with flooding. I'm sure that was the idea, but it's right next to the bridge, the lower area. The water's going to go flowing in around it. It's not going to do anything. So all it acts as is an anti-disabled person bulwark. So that's what I would like to see removed. And perhaps that's something to ask. How do we do this? Ask Dover District Council to get rid of it.
It's a public right of way, so it's KCC's responsibility.
KCC.
As I found out from the step that was broken, DDC generously agreed to fix it just through communications with me, but it isn't their responsibility.
Right, so something to approach KCC and ask, I think, what's it for? And if they can't identify what it's for, then we don't want it. And if they say it's going to keep the floodwater out, then I don't think it will. That's from me. Anybody else? Any other comments about disabled disability access strategy? Because we are going to wait on anyway on this report. No, if we can then move on. Tourism. Number 9. Further update from the Tourism Forum. I would imagine that's Councillor Black.
That's right. We had a tourism forum meeting recently. Unfortunately, not as well attended as we would like. I think that's I think we've got an issue with how Compass actually communicate with their people, also finding the items that are important for them. But bear in mind that one of their issues is that many of the businesses that are in Compass are fairly often not like one-man bands, but very small numbers of staff, and freeing up some people to attend these meetings. But I'm going to try and see Compass and ask them a bit more about it. Because also when I tried to get Compass to do something about the parking issues, we didn't get very far at all. It just sank without trace. Other things coming up from that is that I'm going to have a meeting with a couple of blue badge holders to try to find out what they really think about Sandwich. And they're doing this professionally, of course, and they're earning a livelihood from it. 4 of us are visiting Dover Docks next month, I think, isn't it? The 6th, I think, when a cruise ship is in, just to see what the operation actually is, to ascertain what the best things might be to try and get more tourists coming to Sandwich, and also start to talk to some of the operators. The sum of this was also raised at the NEC, and the video that was prepared and was premiered at the NEC has apparently gone down extremely well. And that may also help to persuade some of the tour directors, and then the next thing is to get hold of the cruise company tour directors, so they consider, why don't you ask if you can get a sandwich on it as one of your scheduled tours, because at the moment it's a little bit hit and miss.
Do you want to talk at all about the elephant? We seem to be getting a bit of pushback from it.
We've actually got a different quote that's coming now with respect to the elephant. The elephant can be made in a village in India.
Kenya.
And it can, Kenya, it's this afternoon, sorry. And we want to really have a closer look at what it looks like, but they're in Ormskirk, the people who bring them in. However, we do have a meeting on the 5th of June with DDC, with the tour officer there, and with one or two of the other people about sort of like parks and open spaces, and about showing them where we'd like it to sit, and try to get over some of this nitty gritty about what it's going to cost. Can we just have that land? Do we have to pay for it? All these things. So DDC appeared very keen to have something like this in Sandwich, because it is a big tour. They think it attracts families, children, and there isn't really anything that we're doing at the moment that is addressing that particular area. So maybe after the 5th of June we'll have far more information about DDC's point of view, including paying for it, because that's the biggest issue.
That's the elephant in the room.
Yeah. So, well, they were sort of quite positive about it, but anyway, we'll know a bit more after the 5th, and we've got some photographs of what it could look like, and what it can be covered with to protect it and so on. Yeah. So it's back on the agenda.
Anything else on the tourism?
Can I just add, just to respond to Councillor Black, so Viking Cruises, they do quite a lot of tours for here, for the town. I see them quite every week. However, you know, the annoying thing is they do a Wednesday, and Wednesdays are nearly closed, and so most of the sandwiches as well. So half the things are not open, so they walk around just twiddling their thumbs. So that might be a suggestion to speak to the cruise operators and say to them, don't visit on a Wednesday, visit on a Tuesday or a Thursday market day even, and stuff. Also, I've done a tour myself. An old colleague of mine who works for another company phoned me up the day before and said, are you off tomorrow? I said, yes. He said, you live in Sandwich? I said, yes. Can you do a tour for me? So I took a coach load around the town, took them to the museum, St Peter's, and down to the quays, to the Compass Rose and stuff. That's pretty good. I've got some contact details for you that I can pass to you, Candidate back, so you can contact coach operators and stuff for the tours.
That much appreciated. Also, one of the reasons for talking, this is precisely one of the things that the group actually wants talk about. They get people down and nothing is open.
Yeah.
So there is the issue that the tourism board would like. If we can get better notice also of cruise ships and tours, we can perhaps through Compass alert more people say, look, this group is coming in, it's 2 coach loads or whatever at this sort of time, and perhaps get a bit more success. It's very difficult for the businesses. If there's no footfall in the town normally, to open up on spec is not going to be quite so easy. We have to be able to focus things on much more closely. But it is right, this problem, whereas if you go to some of the places, and I went on a cruise recently, even in small towns, they're aware of it in France, and they open it.
Yeah.
So,
there's currently 2 cruise ships in tomorrow, because I know that because I'm taking a group back to Heathrow Airport tomorrow, so I know there's 2 cruises tomorrow. But it's all allocated of where they're going a big way before they arrive anyway. So but I'll pass you the contact details.
Yes, I was speaking to Councillor Gray, who's involved in the Heritage Harbour initiative the other day, about getting historical vessels to moor up in Sandwich, and he outlined a few plans and ideas that are ongoing. because with the P22 gone, that was quite an attraction. And if we can get historical vessels moored up along the quay, that would, as I say, be an attraction to visitors. But Councillor Gray has got the details about what's planned.
Thank you, yes. The present plan is that they get a Thames Way, which you and I might well call a Thames a barge, a sailing barge, and that is due to be here next year. And hopefully we'll be able to train some of the school children to crew it, so they'll be able to take it out, and that builds better links with the maritime heritage as well as the other character-forming things. And if you're out in the channel in a Force 8, you're going to have to do things carefully. On the P22, watch this space.
I do know that the pontoon for the old P22 is broken, so they can't moor there at the moment. However, I think the DDC needs to look at their mooring fees as well, because they are quite high. The mooring fees at Sandwich.
We finished on, I think we're finished on tourism now. Can we move on to items for information only? This is not to be discussed, this is as a general thing. This is just to format what we're doing next meeting. Matters for the July 2025 meeting. Opportunity for members to request matters for future Heritage and Townscape Committee meetings and share information. And if we can kick off with the climate change issue. So, to form an agenda item under the heading climate change, what elements will we be including in that? Councillor Chiggy, you had a...
So it should be our response to the climate change, because it is in our business plan. So it would be good to maybe do some investigations in terms of what's feasible. But what we should be doing is, as a start of this end, we should be capturing what we're already doing, so we don't lose sight of that. But also identifying opportunities that we can adopt both within the council itself, but also more broadly across the town.
So, in detail, but this is the agenda item to actually, as you were saying, identify what we're doing, what we can do.
Yeah. So I'm happy to work up a report on the things we can consider.
And this is
So a discussion document.
as a headline.
Yeah, this isn't looking for approval, it's a discussion document, so we can and hopefully capture some of the things we're already doing.
Yeah. Any other headline items for climate change?
Oh, sorry, not for climate change, well,
Oh.
it's affected, could have been affected.
Well, just really part and parcel of that is the trees, you know, the voluntary tree warden's report, which will obviously impact on climate change.
Yeah.
So do you want to put that under climate change or
Um,
a separate?
Under climate change. It might eventually be a separate thing, but let's keep it under
start
climate
off
change
with
for now.
that.
Yeah, because anything else under that particular heading that we can, Carol?
The emergency plan for Sandwich, what happens if there is a major threat or emergency in the town, such as a major fire, and where do people go?
Yeah.
Do they know what the alarm sounds like? Do they know where to go to, where to form?
Yeah.
Whose takes responsibility for all of
Resilience.
that? And it's a question I don't know the answer, so
Yeah.
it would.
Yeah.
I have a bit of the answer to that. So obviously you've got the Kent Resilience Forum. Each district council has its own emergency control centre. So when there's a major flood or fire or building collapse or whatever, they all kick into action and they create like an emergency committee kind of thing. So they police go here, ambulances go here, fire brigade go here, etc. They send out the Red Cross to help with like emergency housing and housing officers and stuff like that. You might want to speak to the Dover District Council regarding what they have.
That's the detail element.
Yeah.
This is the headline element.
Right.
So essentially, Sandwich's resilience plan, what STC can be involved in, because there are things the police do, fire brigade do, which we don't. we can have something.
If you create a Sandwich Town Council emergency plan, so you could like use the Guildhall for accommodation, temporary accommodations, etc. Like that.
Yeah.
You'd be
So that's a discussion.
Yeah.
So we want that as a.
Although surely we have an emergency plan.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be worth checking that we have got one?
To be honest,
then
Yeah.
To be honest, Mr. Mayor, in the 13 years I've been
Never seen
involved, I've never seen one or heard one for Sandwich.
that's a bit alarming.
There was one.
Right.
I know there was one. It's a councillor who is no longer a councillor, but when I first came here, I heard this plan. I came to a council meeting, listened to what it was
So how
about.
long ago was that?
Well, that must have been 15 years ago.
That's quite out of date.
And that's what concerned me, because it was getting everybody in an emergency down to the high school as
Right,
well.
to
So
discuss
I just,
emergency plan.
And
Yes.
investigate.
To
Yes.
investigate, yes.
Yeah.
Investigate if there is one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it will be updated as opposed to created.
So that's essentially got 3 agenda items.
Yeah, so I've got climate change, which under that will become trees, and then emergency resilience plan.
Emergency resilience plan. And councillor.
I have 2, if you permit me. So I've been noticed over the last couple of months that the finger posts around the town that tells you where certain things are. They're being moved. They're in a bit of disrepair. They're quite old and they need a good old spruce up and stuff. I wonder if we could put that on the agenda today so we can have an audit on those.
Does that come under Councillor Chuka's street furniture?
No, it doesn't, but it came under Councillor Franklin's review of street signs.
Right. Can that go onto the action list? Is that something that's possibly going to come up frequently?
Do you want it as an item first to discuss?
Yeah, okay, let's discuss it and then potentially go to the action
The
list.
second one,
Yes.
I'm not sure, I don't know if the Mayor will support this or not, but regarding the peace stone, well, we've spoken about moving the peace stone and stuff, whether the Townscape Heritage to take the pressure off the Mayor, because obviously he's going to be busy, is to bring it to here so we can discuss, obviously its location, we know where it's going to go, hopefully, discuss it out, because we had a discussion with Sounds and Bloom AGM regarding it this afternoon as well. So maybe the HT can look at that aspect of where
Yeah,
this
so I've already spoken to the town clerk and pointed her in the direction who needs to be engaged with, because we have to do, without causing any offence to anybody.
Yeah.
So she has got that on her list of actions to do, and then we will bring a proposal, possibly to here, but there will be a cost involved, because it's not going to be 2 men and a dog lifting it and moving it.
No.
It will need some form of apparatus, so. But again, the town clerk has suggested that she's got access, not herself, to something that can move it. So we've got a plan, and my aim would be that if we as a council agree to move it, that we do it on World Peace Day, which is the 21st of September this year. So that gives us 6 months to get this sorted.
Right. Do we want that as an agenda item?
If only to track it, yeah.
Let's have that as an agenda, and might then go to the action list.
We would think
And moving on from there, nothing else to add to the agenda. So we've got a nice set of meeting agendas for next time. Date and time of next meeting, the 9th of July 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.